Hello, and welcome to another live chapter reading of Tenacious, Billionaire Bodyguards, Book 6 by Via Marie. Brought to you by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. 1. Alley. I gaze out at the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows and swallow down my disappointment. Lexi would have told me if Nick were coming to the announcement party, and I should be happy that he didn't bother. It would just stir up all the old feelings I've been trying to bury and leave me having to figure out how to evade the blue-eyed devil all over again. A firm hand touches one shoulder, while the warmth of a whisper in my ear pulls me from my reverie. Allie? The sound of that deep, gravelly voice sends a sliver of exhilaration coursing down my spine. I spin slowly, inhaling a breath before looking up and into those deep blue eyes that pierce me with their intensity. I'm a take-charge girl, usually, but one finding it exceptionally hard to speak, let alone breathe, at the moment. I finally managed to squeak words out through the dryness of my throat. Hi, Nick. His eyes rake over my body, and the heat of his gaze warms my skin. It's good to see you again, Allie. You look fantastic. Thank you, I say, smoothing hands down my dress. He glances at his watch. It wasn't easy finding a parking spot tonight. Sheldon and Lexi aren't too far away. Should we take a seat with the others while we wait to find out what the big announcement is all about? I nod, because nodding is better than squeaking. Nick places his hand on the small of my back and guides me to the large oval table where the rest of our friends and his teammates sit. He pulls out a chair for me and then walks around the other side. It gives me a small window of time to gather my senses as the electrical charge his touch creates flows through me and settles with the butterflies in my stomach. Absolutely none of the feelings he stirred up have diminished. All the nights of dreaming about him, all the mornings over coffee convincing myself this attraction isn't real, has been for nothing. Maybe it's because I haven't been with someone for so long, or because, damn, he's just hotter than sin. I glance up and flush under the heat of his stare. You look deep in thought. Those bright blue eyes and that surfer boy looking hair, all spiky with blonde highlights from the Mediterranean sun, the same gravelly voice that talks to me at night, whispers in my ear and tells me to do unmentionable things in my dreams. Not one thing has changed in 30 days. I breathe in deeply while the waitress pours us each a glass of wine and then makes her way down the table. No relationships. That's how I roll. Just an occasional night at the club to blow off necessary steam and take care of urges that won't quiet with a well-placed rubber friend. That's the way to keep your heart from getting shattered into a million pieces. It's worked for years, and I'm not about to get sidetracked by this smooth-talking player who spends most of his life flitting from one continent to another with model-like women fawning all over him wherever he goes. He's no different than his friends Liam and Trent. All they have to do is look at a girl for more than a cursory glance, and she'll do anything asked for either one of them, or both. No safeguarding myself is a definite necessity around this group, especially from the blue-eyed devil who's smirking at me with that panty-melting look in his eyes. 2. Nick. I should wait and take it a little slower with Allie. But damn, she's breathtaking tonight. Her dark hair flows past her shoulders, and that thin, form-fitting pink sweater hugs her in all the right places. This trip to the States, there's no crucial assignment pulling me to the other side of the world. And I'm not giving up until I find out more about the woman who's haunted my dreams for the last 30 nights. I send her a text and gesture for Allie to look at her phone. Nick. You never responded to my messages after I left. Why? Allie takes another sip of wine, and as she reaches for her cell, Katerina squeals with delight from the other end of the table, pointing to the door as Sheldon guides Lexi into the reserved room of the upscale restaurant. Allie spots her best friend almost right away and rushes over to pull her in close for a hug. They pull apart, laughing, with eyes that sparkle, clearly glad to see each other after an entire month of being apart. Sheldon gives me a grin over the top of the ladies, finally managing to corral them back to the table. I stand and pull out the chair next to me for Lexi's mom, and feel the heat of Allie's eyes heating my skin. Her steady gaze pulls mine toward her, and she smiles at me from across the table. My chest tightens with an unnamed emotion, and one completely unfamiliar. I've never seen her smile like that. Bright and beautiful and all for me. No, I would have remembered that because damn, it sure is pretty. Those pink-lined lips part so sweetly that it sends a jolt of desire straight to my cock. She continues watching me as I get settled back into my chair, just observing and sipping her wine. Those bright green, shimmering eyes seem to look right through me, even over the top of her glass. But then, her pretty upturned lips turn into a frown. She looks down and reaches into her handbag, pulls out a paper, grabs her purse quietly, excuses herself from the table, and walks hastily through the door that takes her to the main area of the restaurant. Sheldon taps the top of his wine glass with the tines of his fork and smiles widely at the group before us. "I've always wanted to do that," he says, grinning, oblivious that anything is happening at this end of the table. He's just focused on his mission for the night and on Lexi, who doesn't have eyes for anyone but him. I excuse myself from the table and follow Allie. Trent is positioned by the door and nods in the direction of Allie, who's already on her cell phone in a quiet corner by the bar. There's some emergency at the hospital. Liam's getting the company SUV brought around just in case she needs to head to the hospital. I was going to touch base with you in private a little later to give you a heads up. Allie's planning to talk with Sheldon about her security detail. She doesn't think she needs it anymore and has no idea you've been footing the bill. My jaw tightens at the reminder, something that should have been taken care of long before now. I'll need to deal with that at some point. Thanks for letting me know. Allie makes her way back to where we're both standing. I hate to leave Lexi on her first night back in town and miss the big announcement, but I have to go. There's been an accident, and it's going to take a while to get to the hospital. Bad? I ask. She nods. Sounds like a 6-car pileup on the other side of the city, and the roads are getting ice-covered. They sent in the Jaws of Life and helicopter. They'll be bringing the victims to Central Hospital as soon as they can get them out of the wreckage, so I need to be there when they get there. The department is already short-staffed and running with temp nurses, and Friday night traffic on Good Weather Day can take forever. They'll need you there fast. I turn to Trent. I'll take the SUV and take Allie to the hospital, and Liam can take my ride. We can get vehicles switched later. Come on, Liam should be pulling up any minute. I take Allie's hand, and her eyes don't even register surprise. It's clear she doesn't have anything but those people on her mind right now, and it doesn't even question the plan. The wind carries the sleet sideways across the street and onto the sidewalks, forming large icy patches as they freeze to the surface. I hold onto Allie's arm as we make our way to the curb, where Liam has been lucky enough to find a spot long enough for us to load. Trent called and said you were taking Allie to the hospital. You want backup? He says, getting out of the vehicle and coming around to where we're standing on the curb. No, you guys take a little break. Enjoy visiting with all the others. How often is it that everyone is able to get together? I'll give you a call from the hospital. My guess is we're going to be there for quite some time, though. I answer, closing the door for Allie. Here, take the keys to my Range Rover. I pull them from my ring. I'm parked one floor from the top, far right corner next to the stairwell. Got it. You guys drive careful. The roads are getting snow-covered and slippery, Liam replies, as I get into the SUV and close the door before pulling onto the congested street amid the Friday night traffic. We're barely through the first set of lights, and Allie's already on her cell, asking someone if they can come into the ED for the night. She grimaces as she gets off the phone, but immediately dials someone else, and then starts the same conversation all over again, before making 3 more identical calls without any success. Allie tosses her cell into her open purse on the floorboard. Every single one of the nurses is either sick or doesn't have childcare. We have backup nurses, but they were called in late this afternoon. The team at the hospital is going to be completely fried by the time this night is through. We seriously need to do something different with our staffing model. The weather causes the already unusually congested traffic to slow to a crawl. I can feel Allie's tension and frustration level mounting from here. At the rate the traffic is moving, it'll take at least another hour to get to the hospital, and by that time, it could be too late. I select Chase's name from the menu on the dash, and the overhead system begins to ring. Chase always tells us that the equipment he owns is at our disposal, but I'd still like to get his okay to use his helicopter. I can see Allie turn to face me from my periphery as the line is answered. Chase Preston here. This is Nick. There's been a bad accident, and I'm taking Allie to the hospital. The roads are backed up for miles, but the winds are starting to die down. We're nearing the exit to the airport. I'm wondering about the possibility of using the Augusta to get Ellie across the city. Of course. You never need to ask for something like that, but take the new Augusta. It'll handle better in these conditions, and I'll give you a chance to try it out anyway. I appreciate that. There's at least a 6-car pileup heading for Central Hospital. I need to get there as quickly as possible. They're already short on nurses, and they're going to need all hands on deck. Not a problem. I'll call ahead and have it ready for takeoff as soon as you arrive, Chase assures before disconnecting. Allie's eyes warm my skin. That's the Chase Preston? Lexi told me all about him and his wife, Katerina. She actually hugged me at the restaurant earlier before you got there. Lexi spent a lot of time with her in Italy the last month when the guys were working. I'm beginning to see why she thinks so highly of them both. That's incredibly nice of him to let us use his helicopter. Wait, you can fly, right? I laugh. Pretty sure I got that covered. You're not scared, are you? Well, it's not every day I get to ride in a helicopter. Okay, well, never is more like it. I've never been in a helicopter, and it doesn't sound like you've flown this one before. I try to hide my amusement. You're in good hands, Allie. I used to fly helicopters through heavy combat zones for the military. Seriously? That sounds like an intense job. I already feel safer. I veer off the highway, taking the lane circling the airport that will bring us to the private strip on the back side of the tarmac, where the Preston and Losario families keep their private jets and helicopters. The ground crew is already doing a final inspection on the silver Augusta when we arrive. It's picture perfect, fresh off the assembly line. The familiar black emblem of Preston Corp is lit up on its side, and 2 other helicopters sporting the same logo sit next to it. How many helicopters does one man need? Allie asks. Chase and Katerina use one when they're in the city. It will take them back to the Preston Towers for the night once they're done at Victoria's. The other is most often used by Katerina's father, Carlos LaRussio. Her inhalation of breath is telling without even taking my eyes off the road. That guy is like the top dog in New York City crime family, isn't he? Is he? She doesn't say anything for a few minutes. I'm used to the questions by now, comfortable with people's varying reactions, and have no need to fill the silence. Lexi told me there were some things that she and Sheldon couldn't talk about. Probably things like that. I'm sorry I put you in a bad position by asking the question. It just kind of popped out. You didn't, and it's not a problem. I pull up as close as permitted to the helicopter at the same time the line inspector and registrar come out to greet us. He takes my license, fills out the necessary paperwork, and has me sign. I guess everything happens a little differently when you own your helicopters. It does. Buckle up. We'll be at Central in no time at all. I tell Allie after helping her get situated in the cockpit. Oh boy, Allie says, running her hands over the belt. We're seriously going up in this thing? Her grip on the arm of the seat tightens, and I try to stifle a grin. Hey, there's absolutely nothing funny about this. It's just a little new, that's all. I'll get used to it, though. There's not much that an O'Connor can't weather. I lift off and propel forward, giving it a little extra juice, and both of her hands grab the armrests hanging on for dear life. Nick Montgomery, you did that on purpose, she exclaims under breath. Perhaps. For that, I get a well-placed punch to the upper arm, and now I can't help but grin. You hit the arm that flies you. She ignores me, caught up in the city lights twinkling all around us and sprawled out for as far as the eye can see. It's seriously beautiful from up here. I forget what an amazing city New York is, and it's even more spectacular flying above it, she remarks, leaning forward in her seat to take the expense of the lights displayed all the way to the water's edge. Couldn't agree more. I never mind traveling, but I'm always glad to get back home. We were sidetracked at the restaurant by your pager before I could ask you why you didn't respond to any of the texts I sent when you left. I'd like to know why. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this chapter reading of Tenacious from the Billionaire Bodyguards, Book 6 by Via Marie. Thank you. Have a good night.